Hi everybody, Josiah here, also known as Chilling Silence, on behalf of the DigiByte Foundation, and today I want to have a chat with you about what it means for DigiByte to be permissionless. Now, this was prompted by somebody in the marketing channel, asking about if they needed to pay royalties on certain logos and things. Now, all of the logos that are released officially for DigiByte are basically they're open source, and you're free to do with them as you'd like. Certain other things, other people's works might require permission, but DigiByte as a blockchain itself is permissionless. Now, this really sparked my interest back last year. There was an interview that I saw on YouTube, which I'm going to go into just here, and so I'll allow this guy to basically speak for himself. Let me just hide this here and let's go for it.
A key aspect of Bitcoin is that it's permissionless. You don't need to ask anybody's permission to do anything. And this is key in the entire community, which is why I decided to publish a letter where I was chief executive officer without asking anybody's permission, as a way to illustrate that we're not asking permission. That's just part of our community. The person who's behind Bitcoin Cash.
So he wrote a letter and he basically decided he was going to call himself the CEO. Now, I thought that was absolutely fascinating that you could be the CEO, for lack of a better word, of Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. And the great part is nobody's there, nobody's going to disagree with you, nobody's going to stop you. So permissionless also basically involves a lot of other things in terms of, do you need permission in order for you to utilize it or to use it? Do you need permission to send a transaction, or can somebody else with their permission stop you from sending a transaction? So there's a few other things in there. And so this basically, last year towards November, I think, it really kind of piqued my interest. And that was when I started telling people, especially about DigiByte, look, it's not just about one or two people being a DigiByte ambassador, but rather it's about everybody being an ambassador for DigiByte as they use it, as they talk about it. Now, this was, as I mentioned, this was tweeted out earlier by Richard Hart. There's an interesting article. There's a whole lot of information here, but basically the key part is here, permissionless, because we need control. Now, what they're doing is they're talking about why people would run themselves like a private blockchain that is like effectively like shielded off from the rest of the world. And so what they basically say here, I'll quickly read it out. So a blockchain has to be permissionless in order to ensure permanence. This is very simple. If you can control who has access, you can control who decides what the truth is. Therefore, you hold the keys to change history in any way that you want. So they go into a bit of analogy here about somebody holding a book and who can look at the book and who can write in the book, like a family member and things like that. So it says here, this person, by extension, also the one in full control of rewriting the history, because when the access controller wants something changed, he can simply remove anybody opposing from that change and write or read the access, and then promote himself or by proxy to be able to write, and then change it, and then change this book, change this ledger, change this blockchain. Now, if other people can read it, they might notice that history is rewritten, but will lack all the power to do anything about it. The truth is what is in the blockchain, and in the end, they cannot change that because of a lack of permissions. It matters little how clumsy or detectable such a retrospective change is. The one with access control can, through that power, make these changes. Now, this is obviously why we talk about certain other blockchains where they've only got like a few like validator nodes and things, and if basically this is where if you are proof of stake, this happens often because there's usually a couple of major kind of players in that area that have control, that can go back in, that can rewrite history, or maybe they don't have full control themselves. But because they've gone and elected other people, or made it look public like they've gone and been unbiased with their election, basically they can go through and they could rewrite history simply by saying to, this person over here or this company over here who also holds power on their blockchain, we want to go back and we want to rewrite history. We want to change this. This didn't happen over here, or this transaction didn't get sent. We want to change that. We don't want it to have ever occurred. So this is why DigiByte being permissionless also functions as an aspect of the decentralization. So because we are a proof of work blockchain, and that means that anybody can basically participate with this. Nobody has to ask for like I say, permission in order to join. So where other blockchains have validator nodes, and there are a limited number of them, maybe 10, maybe 13, maybe 20, whatever, with DigiByte, anybody can mine on their blockchain. Anybody can participate in both adding blocks to the ledger as well as also verifying the ledger. And so that's really quite powerful, because if you run, like I was saying, if you run and there are, let's say there's 20 other nodes, and maybe you and your company control, let's say, 5 of those nodes. In order for you to rewrite history, you might then need to go and have a chat with 6 other people out of the 20, giving you 11 of them. And so you can basically then talk to these other people, other companies that run these validator nodes, and get them to rewrite the history for you. And by then the other 9 are basically, they're all wrong, because, well, there's 11 people that say that it's, over here, or there's 9 people that say that this is the truth. Well, the 11 people say that this is the truth, so we're going to give them the truth, because there's more of them and they believe it. And so that's what happens also when you run a DigiByte node. You are contributing to that effective history, this is what is the defined accurate record. So permissionless, do you need permission to run a node? No. Do you need permission to validate the blockchain? No. Do you need permission to mine DigiByte? No. Do you need permission to run a Dapp on DigiByte? No. Do you need permission to save some data into DigiByte? Not at all. Do you need permission to send or receive a transaction? No. Do you need permission to send it to an exchange? No, there is no permission. Do you need permission to contact an exchange to ask them to upgrade their node? Not at all. What about permission in terms of if you wanted to contact an exchange and ask them to reduce the number of confirmations from something that's incredibly high down to something that might be a little bit more reasonable and realistic? There is no permission required for anything like that at all, because there is not one central entity that controls things. Now, we've had a few questions in the past about the DigiByte Foundation and what that specifically means. So the DigiByte Foundation, we're specifically a group of like-minded people who are banded together, I suppose. Think of it kind of like one of those clubs you might have had when you were in school. It's a group of people who are coming together for a common good, basically to support the DigiByte blockchain, specifically with the development of it. Do we control the blockchain? Not in the slightest. Could anybody else start up a similar group? Absolutely. We've seen the same sort of thing happen with the DigiByte Awareness Team, where the DigiByte Awareness Team have come along and they've said, you know what? We understand that we don't need permission. This is a permissionless blockchain and anybody can participate. And so they did. They started up the DigiByte Awareness Team, and as a result of that, we've seen them making some great partnerships with things like UTrust. All as a result because a couple of people, such as Rudy, decided that they were going to start a group, call themselves the DigiByte Awareness Team, and they didn't need to ask anybody. I'll give you one more thing just to kind of close here as well. It's really quite funny because we get people ask us all the time, well, what kind of applications are being built on top of DigiByte? Where can we get a list? And I like to refer back to a story. So there is a gentleman in my church, and he's basically been using the DigiByte blockchain as part of their company here in New Zealand. We're a tiny little country here. There's only 4 million of us, but his company has been using the DigiByte blockchain following some discussions that he and I have had on a Sunday. Now, it didn't come up again for a couple of months until earlier on in the year when I was talking with him again, and he basically said, yeah, we're using the DigiByte blockchain in our company. We're saving certain documents and validating them on the DigiByte blockchain. I said, that's absolutely fantastic, man. Why didn't you say something to me? He said, well, because I didn't need to. And I thought, you know what, that right there, that is powerful, that there is no one central entity, no one person, no one group that he has to report to. The blockchain is going to just carry on, and he doesn't have to ask permission from anybody at all. How incredible is that? And so that's why it makes it difficult when people come to you and they say, look, I want a list. I want you to tell me everybody who's using the DigiByte blockchain. We don't know who's using the DigiByte blockchain. Well, what about people who are mining it? We don't know the people who are mining it because they don't require permission to mine the DigiByte blockchain. So I want to leave you with that as a closing, and I want to empower you to speak on behalf of DigiByte and to be encouraged that you have the authority to speak on behalf of DigiByte, to get out there and to represent DigiByte in the best possible way, at least I would hope you would represent it in the best possible way, as a blockchain, to be able to talk to your local businesses and things, and to be able to say, look, hey, I represent DigiByte. I'm here to talk to you about why you should accept it maybe for your online store, or in your bakery, or maybe you should add DigiID for your building security. Anything at all like that. Be empowered to speak on behalf of DigiByte, because DigiByte is permissionless, and that is powerful. I hope you've enjoyed this today. I hope you found it educational, and I hope you've learned a thing or two about what it means to be a permissionless blockchain. Now, don't take my permission. Go out there and speak on behalf of DigiByte.